Have you been battling a nagging injury like hamstring pain and you want to get a marathon PR or BQ? If you're feeling lost, not physically ready, and feel your body is the limiting factor in getting faster as a runner, that's exactly what Teresa was feeling. And if you've had upper hamstring tendon pain and you were told that you just need to stop running, or you've entered a new age range and you want to go for that BQ finally, then you need to listen to Teresa's inspiring story on how she not only was able to get back into running without having to worry about her hamstring limiting her, but get a marathon PR and a Boston qualifying time. So I've had the pleasure to witness Teresa's transformation firsthand as a running physical therapist and coach through our Spark Healthy Runner signature coaching program, and see the growth that she's made during our time together and now working with Coach Lou on our team to go after that BQ. So Teresa, like so many of our clients that I'm fortunate enough to work with, is exactly why I'm passionate about that you don't need to stop running if you have one of these common running related injuries. And I'm just excited for her to be able to share her story with you guys today. So thank you so much, Teresa, for coming on and being able to share your experience. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's just, it's great to be here. As you know, I always enjoy talking with you, and I hope that some other runners can, learn from my experience.
Yeah, and they certainly will. It is really my hope that those that are not only battling this dreaded kind of proximal hamstring tendinopathy, or PHT as we call it, but really a lot of the common running related injuries, especially if it's like a tendon injury, that, a lot of people are feeling defeated and they might feel like they need to stop doing what they love, being able to like get that stress relief with running. And, if anyone's been in that situation and you've been told to stop running, or you've like gone to PT before, every time you try to run again, every time you try to train for a marathon, like the pain just comes back, then you need to listen to Teresa's story. And like these fears, obstacles are like completely normal. And, you can overcome them with the proper strategies and tips that, we'll share today. So Teresa, if you don't mind, just kind of like, let's like set the table here before we even met. Give me like the before running story, before we started working together. Let's dive into like the scenario that you were facing and how your running was going. So we were just talking before we hopped on here that it's been almost a year, like we met last December. So kind of prior to that, what were you facing and what were you dealing with?
Yeah. So I had been feeling this pain in the hamstring attachment, is what was always told, right? And as you know, I'm an occupational therapist by training. I have some, a bit of understanding of anatomy and so on. So I understood about where this was and kind of what was going on. But this had been going on for a long time. Probably over 10. I was trying to figure out when it had started, and it never really completely put me out. I kind of felt like I could go, I could run, and I could push a bit, but only so far. I always felt limited during my runs. I felt really crappy, like the pain would just come back after the runs. I was having pain with sitting, like all these classic kind of symptoms, as I've come to learn. Um, and I didn't really know exactly what it was. So I'd been to a number of physical therapists. I went to massage. I went to chiropractor. I went to acupuncture. Like just so many different approaches I tried over the years. And of course, like you mentioned, I was told a few times that, well, you either just need to cut it back or just lay off, or maybe find a different activity that, won't aggravate this particular situation, which
And
I was
then
not satisfied
I'm
with.
curious, did they tie your age to that too? Being like, well, you're getting older. Maybe you should find a different activity. I hear that a
You
lot.
know, no, well, this has spanned so long that I think I was still like young enough when it started where somebody wouldn't dare, they'd get like a total stink eye from me or something. So But you know what? The ironic thing is that I kind of started running, and I really found very quickly that I enjoyed, racing and sort of that competitive kind of situation. I'm by no means like, in this like upper echelon, like super fast runner, but enough so that I felt like, oh, I can do this. So I,
All right, you're
yeah,
just
so it
down.
was like,
Can I just say something? Like
yeah.
you literally just qualified for the Boston Marathon. So like you are in the upper echelon of runners in your age group. Like, let me just say that right there. Okay. We always have this thing as runners, right? Like we're never good enough and we're not fast
It's
enough to
not good
the
enough.
person that, you see next to you or you see on social media. So yeah, Teresa, you are fast.
It's so
Give yourself some
bad.
credit.
Just like it's only because somebody faster didn't show up, or something like that. It's so bad. So anyway, so I think that really the biggest thing for me is that running just kind of felt like it sucked for many reasons. I mean, part of me, but it just was not fun. It wasn't really enjoyable. It felt like, people would ask me why I do this, including people that I went to see for treatment. And I could only say, I just feel compelled to do this. Like, I feel like I can't not do it. But there was this feeling of like, it really wasn't enjoyable. So I'd go out like on a casual weekend run or something, and would just feel like not great. Like I felt like I didn't have like the power in my legs, or also, I mean, separately other issues, because I didn't realize that you actually had to fuel at all as a runner. So I'd go out and feel just like just not great. So if it wasn't so much like this nagging pain that made me want to just kind of throw it in, it was more that I'm like, why am I doing this if it just isn't that much fun? So that really was it. And of course, so that was like all the background. And then right before you and I started working together, I was really I had this in my mind that I wanted to qualify for Boston. Um and so I was after a particular time. I like really loaded on a bunch of races. I did not have a marathon in mind, but I was also trying to qualify for New York with a time qualifier. So I was, because I realized, okay, a marathon is not in the cards for me right now. So I just ran half after half after half. And I think you and I talked after that last half marathon where I really pushed, and I made the time within the window, but I couldn't walk. So for like 3 or 4 days afterwards, I was just hobbling along. So it was that time that it was really good timing that we had set up to work together.
Yeah. And how many marathons have you done before that time period where you just started doing half marathons?
I had done 2, but the
Okay.
last one was in 2017.
Okay. All right. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it was a while. So, it was a good 7 years since your last marathon. And so, all right. So, you were kind of struggling with this pain for pretty much more than 10 years on and off. You've seen like every practitioner possible. You've seen PTs, you've seen acupuncturists, you've seen chiropractors, you've seen massage therapists. They probably did some really good hands-on work, right? Some manual therapy work that probably
Yep.
felt good in the short term, but it really never got rid of your pain or your problem for the long term, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. And you really want to challenge yourself. So you still were, trying to run fast, right? Do some speed work, trying to train hard, try to get this time qualifier for New York Marathon by running a fast half marathon. And basically it left you to the point where you really literally couldn't walk after like being able to race like a really fast half marathon effort.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So just kind of setting kind of the before picture, and yeah, can you be totally transparent on how many times we actually contacted one another before you actually decided to invest in your health and your running longevity? Do you remember?
It was like 30. No, I mean, I know that I kept sort of asking questions. We had that call. I was trying to think back. I think we had a call um in 20 was it
2023. I have the date right
2023?
here, January.
Beginning of 2023. I remember because it was really cold and I was sitting in front of my window and I was like, this is great. I was really enjoying our conversation. And then for some reason, I just kind of hedged. Not unusual for me. But and anyone who might see this who knows me knows that I will like turn things over and over and over. Before I commit if I end up committing. Um, so yeah, it was a while I think before we talked again, or we had some exchanges, and then a lot of time went by, and then I just I think we had some more like there were some maybe some DMs or something. And I was just I was like trying to like inch back into this conversation, and then finally talked with you again. And I think it took a little while, even at that point, maybe just a little pause, and finally it was like, you know what, I just have to make this. I have to make this investment of time, the investment of the financial investment. It was like the whole thing. I had to do it for myself. And
Hmm.
so I think who knows? I was really trying to think about what that like whole protracted period was about. Um, but
Did you have what were the biggest hesitations that you had? Was it the fact that it was virtual? I believe it was, right? I feel like I remember you asking questions about that aspect, right? About how, are we going to fix this problem if you weren't seeing me in person, right?
yeah, I think the concept of physical therapy virtually was a bit foreign to me. Like even myself as a clinician doing telehealth was, unless it was just like a follow up or discussion or something that could be easily done virtually, like during the pandemic and so on. Yeah, it just didn't really compute. And at the same time, I had listened to enough episodes and folks who had also talked about their experience and how beneficial it was to have that time that they're not traveling to a clinic. To really work on the strength training and so on. So, like that, it actually fits better in the schedule. So that helped. Um, yeah, that helped a little bit.
Right. So it's actually like a time saver from like the time you would have to schedule appointments, drive to therapy, drive back. Okay. Yeah. And I do remember, when we originally spoke, basically a year before you decided to actually commit. So like we spoke on the phone. We had some follow-up emails. I remember you had like questions. I was like following up with you. I'm like, all right, I know I could definitely help Teresa. Like I want to work with Teresa. She's got this big goal. And then, you decided to do it on your own, right? It sounds like you really love like figuring things out on your own, it seems like, and you really felt like, hey, I can do this. Like I'm an OT as well. Like I can figure this thing out.
Mhm.
So when we spoke the second time, and I was like, all right, like I know what she wants. I know I can help her. I'm like, and I think even that time I was a little more blunt, like in our follow up emails, and was kind of more direct, like to really tell you, like, Teresa, you don't understand like how much this is going to help and change your life, like the fact that you're going to be able to run without having to worry about your hamstring pain that you've been worrying about for 10 plus years, and actually like get faster to hit like your goals that you had. So I am somewhat proud of myself because sometimes I let people out, right? Like I'm not like hard salesman or anything, it's kind of like I want to make sure it's a good fit. Like if I can help you, I'm going to be totally honest with you. If I can help you, and like I felt like I can really help her. I like know I can help her. Like please let me guide you there. And I'm so glad that you did, honestly, and you decided to finally take the plunge. So when we did start working together, actually, what were some of the things that you noticed like right away that were helping or worked well after, trying so many different clinicians in the past or trying to like figure it out on your own in terms of like your run plan and things? What like really kind of worked right away or you felt like was helping?
I felt it was so comprehensive. Our sort of initial evaluation, your assessment, really looking at my running pattern, my gait, right? Um,
Yeah.
and just kind of going through the whole thing. And I think that honestly was what really impressed me. I was like, wow, okay, this is actually more comprehensive than some of the initial assessments, the evaluations that I've had in a clinic, because I was putting all these pieces together that I wanted to see. I knew I needed some kind of attention. I needed some sort of treatment. But I had not found, and I'd found physical therapists who were also runners, but not somehow treating runners specific injuries. And then adding in the strength training and also the coaching. So all of that, like right away, I was like, wow, this is like a huge gift to have this opportunity because it's all here. And I think I just felt comfortable. So you did do your job very well because we did communicate that through just that initial meeting. And then we just set up the strength training, and I had done, it was sort of haphazard at best. I was just kind of making things up. I sort of had some idea of what I was doing, maybe. I understood that like stretching is not the best thing, or really is not recommended for these types of situations. Basic principles, but the very specific strength training exercises, I realized, like, also very comprehensive. It's a lot, um, but
And I remember we
uh,
had to try to condense that for you as well because you are busy with work, you travel a lot,
yeah.
and I remember actually like you not having a lot of time to do strength. So I remember us kind of having to modify that as we went, and just to make sure it like fit into your life, which is quite common.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm glad like the structured kind of strength program and working on that. And I think you bring up a good point about for those that are listening to this who have proximal hamstring tendon pain or upper hamstring tendon pain, this is one of those conditions that I, I really feel that it is a combination of kind of the running errors in terms of training, not having the proper strength and the right muscles built up, and the loading of the tendon with specific exercises that need to be done. And if you can take care of those three elements, like this problem will get better. If it's really highly irritable, yes, some manual techniques would be great. When I used to see, patients in the clinic, I would do some dry needling to the hamstring muscle belly. You could do some friction massage to the tendon itself. You might address a hip mobility impairment by doing some mobilizations to the hip joint, but those are kind of short term. They kind of open up the window of opportunity to decrease pain levels, so someone actually feels comfortable to do the exercises, but what you kind of mentioned, I think is critical. And and that is why literally for this condition, everyone that I work with, I never have to have them to like stop running totally. And even for you, I was looking back in our log and we did actually start with some structured walk run intervals because it was so flared up after that half marathon. So you had like high tissue irritability. You had a lot of pain with sitting for just, 15 or 20 minutes. And, we didn't have you stop running altogether, but we started with some structured walk run intervals. We kept everything flat, not running any elevations because that will usually kind of irritate this condition. But we were able to keep you running, which I think is important to know because I see so many, clients who have this condition and, they've been told in the past and they just go through a cycle of like, I'll take a month or two off of running and then I'll try to do it again. But if you kind of scale it the right way and really structure that as you build up the strength and you build up like the tensile strength in the tendon, you can actually stay running and then, build up from there. So I'm glad, I think those points that you made are like salient points for anyone struggling with a chronic tendon injury. So it can simply be applied to the Achilles tendon as well, quad tendon, posterior tibialis tendon. So great points there. And, can you speak to just at the end of the 16 weeks of us working together, where were you at after 16 weeks? So you've been battling this for over a decade. Like, where do you feel like your results were at that 16-week mark? What were you able to do? How were you feeling?
I'll say the one thing that really stuck with me, where I noticed that there was a change, an improvement in this very long-standing, for me, very long-standing condition. That's very, as you said, it's very stubborn. Right before, I think we worked just past the New York half. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So going into that half, I think I had said something about feeling a little bit nervous, like what if it fires up? What if it, kind of expecting that it was just going to miraculously go away, even though all during the training cycle is still there, but not like irritated and sort of, on fire the way that it had been every time I went out to run, because I was also consistently running too fast during my easy runs. Anyway,
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. I remember us having many conversations about that. So another great point that you're adding in there for those to learn.
But you said, basically don't be afraid of it. You've done the strength, you've done the work. It's not like, you won't be able to walk again, or something terrible will happen related to this particular pain, related to this injury. And that just gave me the confidence to, just kind of go for it and not be so kind of hesitant, because I was afraid that, that step, or, if I speed up a little bit, or whatever it is, was going to bring me all the way back to square one. So I remember being so kind of like cautious about that I just didn't want to, everything I did, I'm like, I don't want to undo this. We've done so much work together. And just that one thing going into that marathon was like, or half marathon, was the sort of vote of confidence. And really, it really stuck with me. So after that, I remember we had a call and we talked about it a bit. And I was feeling like, wow, okay. Sure, yeah, it's a little, uncomfortable here and there, nothing unusual, but it wasn't to the level that it had been the 4 months earlier at all. I felt like I could kind of, take a little recovery time, and then pick it up again, and then start thinking about a marathon training cycle. And that was just like amazing. And I enjoyed my running. That's like probably the biggest thing, is that I was like, wow, I could, I'm actually looking forward to runs instead of like, oh God, dreading it.
Right. And because you were kind of almost banging your head at the wall for so long, right? Like trying to get faster, get that qualifying time for your half marathons, and, really being frustrated by this pain. So I understood like the fear you had, number one, with the New York half. And even like leading up to that, if you remember, we had talked about like, hey, this past training cycle was really getting you healthy, and we weren't actually training for speed whatsoever. We were really building a healthy, solid base training and foundation. And I remember us kind of doing a little strategy for the half, and trying to set your expectations, but also see how you feel on the course, and like reassure you that yes, you're not going to like pop your hamstring, because you were making those steady improvements. Like you were reaching those milestones each month when we met for our deep dive coaching calls, and I knew that you were building that strength up, and that it wasn't highly irritable, and you wouldn't feel like how you felt at the half marathon that you ran before we met. So I just remember that experience, because I think your husband ran it with you too, right?
He did. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember you just enjoying that. I remember seeing your pictures, and I was just so happy that you got to actually enjoy running again. And it was just so rewarding for me, honestly, and especially because it took you so long to like sign up for the program, right? It's like over a year of messaging each other and getting on calls. And I was like, see, I was like, all right, I knew it. Like I knew it was like the right thing to do, to like be confident and tell Teresa, like, I got her, we can get over this pain. And so I loved your experience in New York and being able to do that, and actually like put out a pretty good race effort, considering we didn't even work on speed work, and we were actually working on you slowing down your easy runs. So, a lot of people would think like, how am I going to get faster if I only do slow running? Or how am I going to get faster if I'm not, doing intervals and doing tempo? Like there's a time and a place for that. And we'll talk about that in your next training cycle. But, if we can get you healthy and build up your strength, you can actually perform better as a runner. So it's like mind boggling, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, all the pieces are so important. The nutrition, the recovery between runs, like all the things that, that we've talked about, that you talk about. And it just, I think it's so important that I realized how much of that I was doing piecemeal and just not really paying attention. So it was all about, just like I had this fixed idea, I want to get faster, or I'm getting ready for this race. And just sort of like so set on that one goal and overlooking all of these other things that really like feed and nourish my whole like runner self. Yeah, so it was really, really important to have all of that, and we talked about, a lot of that. So again, it's just so comprehensive. And I knew too, I was like, okay, I I think this might make a difference this time. I'm gonna give it a shot. Maybe this time is actually the time that I'm gonna get some help with this.
Well, I appreciate the trust that you had. And, when you get to this point, and this is something that I was really passionate about creating when we really, when my business pivoted from kind of an in-person physical therapy clinic to virtual, was that I wanted to create programs that are going to be able to help a runner for longevity, that we weren't going to, have a quote unquote coaching business that just worked on a specific race for folks, where they just want to get a marathon PR, right? Or they just want to get healthy. And then it's like, all right, you're out of pain. Because that was like, the old in the clinic physical therapy model is like, get their pain levels down, then you're discharged. Insurance doesn't pay for it anyway. You can't do performance stuff. So, that's it. I would never see people after that. But I really wanted to create like this bridge. Like, how do we bridge that gap from being like injured, which is where you really were when we started working together, with this highly irritable chronic tendon problem, to now you've run the New York City half and you felt good again. You were feeling strong. Your pain wasn't limiting you. You had some, low level lingering pain, but you were still making strides in your weekly mileage. Your long runs were getting longer. And, at that point, I really felt comfortable that, hey, this condition's stable now. As long as we keep up with, these progressive loading exercises, and you're not like your own worst enemy and try to like run too fast for easy runs, or do some like crazy speed sessions that your body isn't ready for, that you'll continue to progress. And that's why we've kind of, started our Healthy Runner coaching program, and with your goal being to run the marathon again for the first time in like 7 years, and with your goal, as you are getting into a new age category, to get a BQ, I was like, Coach Lou's your man. Like, I got a guy for you. And, you started working with Coach Lou. And what were like some of the things that you really noticed right away, that you felt was like helpful for you during this like marathon training cycle?
Well, I think in that transition, it was clear that, I've talked with you extensively, obviously, and now with Coach Lou, and just from hearing the other coaches on the team, on the podcast, that the general sort of practice and philosophy really is consistent throughout, and there's no like contradictions, which I think could sometimes be the case, you know. So, Coach Lou kept encouraging me, just like you had, well, okay, let's not get too ahead of ourselves here. Like I was talking about, just when we're talking about the training cycle and the goal races, I had a goal race in mind. Um, and then already was talking about fall marathons, and he's like, all right, let's slow down just a little bit here. And at the same time, maybe you want to slow down those easy runs. Because even though I was like testing it, I'm like, well, maybe I could just push this just a little bit, like Dwayne's not looking. So
Trust me, Coach Lou was always looking. I remember when he was my coach. Yeah, he nothing slips by him.
Which is so great. So I really felt that continued support. And also, he's such an experienced runner. And yeah, I felt that I wanted to have that experience, working with someone like that as well. We had a great opportunity to meet in person. We ran a race
Yes.
together, half marathon here in Western
Took some
Mass.
great pictures.
Yeah, it was
I
so
love those
fun.
pictures.
It was so fun. I was just like, wow, this is so great. I can't believe like this is going to come together. And even during that race, he was pacing for it was kind of a small group. I think there was maybe like 6 or 7 of us, and it was just like it was like a little party on the road. It was
Yeah.
so fun. But he was keeping an eye on me, so I felt really, again, like just very supported. He kind of coached me through the whole thing. I just like ran alongside him and finally said, okay, if you're feeling good, you just go ahead. Um, and so I just, again, it was that confidence, to feel like I can do this. Like I don't necessarily have to hold back, but I also know a little bit more where my limits are.
Yeah, and that is something that I strive for, is to have that like continuity of care, right? Like between all of us, especially for the folks that do start with me. You know, I meet with Coach Lou on a monthly basis. We kind of talk about, all the athletes he's working with. And I always love getting updates, about you and, all of like the clients that I've helped in the past. And I think it's important to have that person from like the healthcare standpoint, still on the team, right? And I know those couple of messages that 3 of us got on, as the kind of where I was functioning as more of the consultant role, as opposed to being your one-on-one coach. But I think those little like minor adjustments here and there is always it's always good to know, versus when you have like a PT here or a chiro here, you run coach here, and they're not really all communicating or on the same page. I do find that it is helpful to have kind of the whole team kind of working together and knowing like what the goals are, and knowing, okay, what is really truly too much running versus not enough running, versus just stop running for 2 weeks, right? Like knowing how to actually modify the load with running, I think it's like definitely important. So yeah, I'm curious, like now that you've gotten this BQ and like you finished your marathon, like as you reflected this past week while you were recovering, what did you learn about yourself like during this training block, like leading up to this marathon goal race?
Oh, like so much. I feel like I'm still processing it. Again, just that it's possible to enjoy running even when it's hard, even when it hurts a little bit. Like I understood the pain cave, different from just struggling and being in pain. That was a distinction for me that I learned. It was like, okay, the pain I'm feeling now, this was a net downhill race. We worked on quad strength, we worked on some of that single leg stability and so on, like all the things that I've learned are important for downhill running. But it was it was kind of no match for the amount of downhill. And I know I wasn't alone in that. There were many people who later were just like, what is going on with my quads right now? But it was a different mindset. that I had, again, because I knew I wasn't, um, I knew I wasn't going to just sort of like collapse or break something. So it gave me all of this just gave me that confidence. And to see that again, that difference between um, just it's hard. It can be hard, but it doesn't have to be just suffering. Like, that's not what running is about for me. It's about, like, really just digging, and feeling like, "Okay, I can really, like, give it my all." And I was able that was the thing that I just feel, like, consistently or constantly just, like, blown away by. Like, I really had that experience that I've wanted for so long, to just feel like I'm gonna give it everything I had. It was not easy, and it wasn't necessarily pretty. As a matter of fact, I'm surprised that I was smiling crossing that finish line. But I got to experience that and just, like, leave it all out there, and I think that's so amazing. Now I know that I have that. So it really the whole experience has just given me so much on so many levels, that I just, I can't believe I ever hesitated, really.
I know, looking back, right? But that's something like you could be proud of, right? Like you should, and I hear it in your voice, and I'm sensing that, and I hope you feel that, like genuinely in your heart, that you're proud of that effort, and like that you could give that effort. And it sounds like, to me, I interpret that as you feeling like strong, right? Like during your race, like both physically and mentally, right? Like you're able to kind of push into the pain cave from like a mental standpoint of just, this is hard running, right? Like that race feeling. But it's not, and I love how you made that distinction between like pain, injured pain, right? And you were able to push yourself mentally into fast, hard effort running during a race, and feeling like strong at the end to hit your goal. So I love hearing that, because yeah, I can relate to that in my last two marathons, and doing the dopey challenge. Like, just that feeling, there's nothing like it. Like when you feel strong at the end of a race and you're like on cloud nine, right? It's like, wow, this is clicking on all cylinders. It's just, nothing is better than that feeling, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Yeah. I'm, I'm very happy.
yeah. So for those who are like looking to get a marathon PR, looking to get faster, looking to qualify for Boston, are there any lessons that, you've learned along in your journey that might be helpful for them?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that first comes to mind is just being patient, and like you said so many times, and also Coach Lou, just trust the process, which is hard, I'm sure, for not just me, for a lot of people. Like you said, we want to take things into our own hands, and being sort of a clinician, I want to like question things and see things from like every possible angle. Who knew there was like 4 zillion angles to every single thing that you can come up with. But it is really about um, just keeping at it, and uh, putting in the work. That it might not come all at once, and it might not. Your goal might not be reached in this sort of like fireworks going off, and suddenly you're like don't even feel the ground, and you're just flying. Um, but there, I think the rewards of just kind of keeping with something and being so patient and really working at it, like that's the process is just as important as getting to the goal. So
Mhm.
that was a big thing for me. I also will say that during my race, I kind of forgot about the time. Like I had this time so fixed in my head going into it, and after a while, I just let go of it. And I can't even believe that. It didn't even occur to me until after I was done that at some point I had forgotten, like I wasn't looking at my watch. I'd forgotten that I knew I was going for something, but I knew I was going to get there too. I didn't have to check. I knew that I was going to make it. Um, so there's something about like letting go of some of that. Because again, it's not just about doing this, one race or getting this one time. It's about the whole process and then being able to kind of recover and keep going if that's what you want to do. Um,
Yeah, no, that's so valuable. What I'm hearing there is kind of focusing on process and process goals maybe versus outcome. And sometimes we get so fixated on the numbers and we almost are our worst enemies because we're focusing on the time, focusing on the splits. And then that just like perseverates more like anxiety, right? And probably like trying too hard and not being able to like settle in and actually let it come to you, right? And like be able to, sink into marathon pace effort, let's say, or so it sounds like you were able to almost like let go a little bit and it allowed you to, have this performance that was your fastest marathon ever.
yeah, yeah. And actually, looking back at the splits, they were pretty consistent. And followed that sort of plan of, kind of holding back at the beginning, which is hard when you're going downhill. But Coach Lou and I talked about that many times. I was like, "Are you sure?"
Yeah.
Yes, it's okay. um, so yeah, so I think just kind of keeping with that, it was amazing to see the result without being so focused on it. Like I could look back,
Mm-hmm.
see like, oh wow, I did that, but also have that feeling of accomplishing my goal when I crossed the finish line. Again, I kind of saw the time on the clock, but I somehow it just, I knew I was going there. So it was
Right.
just all about just getting, those last few miles in.
Yeah, I love it. How about, with this kind of stubborn injury that you had for over a decade and this upper hamstring tendon pain, any, recommendations or lessons learned that would be helpful for someone listening to this who might be dealing with the same injury?
Um, yeah, do this strength training. It's so important. And the specific exercises that are geared towards this particular injury. Um, and I would say, like really, it's going to be hard to do on your own. I think it's something that is stuck around. I'm a testament to this. I think it's like, at least 15 years. I've I was dealing with this, or I had been dealing with this. Um, so it's important to find, a program that you can trust and to really work with someone. It's going to be really hard to try to take it into your own hands. So
Yeah.
that's
So
the biggest thing.
getting the guidance, it sounds like, in like the specific exercise and what you noticed, because you tried a lot of things,
Yeah.
obviously, before working together. It sounds like, definitely not stretching. You mentioned that earlier, but the strength exercises are important. And I would echo, because you said it before about patience for just like going after your fastest marathon or BQ. I would echo that with this as well. But not so much for the fact of like patience, you've had it for over 10 years. More patience that once you get a process and structure that you will see progress. And you mentioned this earlier too, that, it's not always linear, right? There
Right.
might be some ups and a little bit of down, but you're always trending in the right direction. And I remember I actually had to reiterate that to you, like after our 4-week call, after our 8-week call, because it wasn't going to be magic. Like you're healed, you have no pain. And I kind of had to remind you, and I usually find that sweet spot after we get like the structured plan down as like the 12-week mark is like people are really feeling like finally noticing, right? Because there's minor improvements, but you're with your body every single day. Like I am seeing like the big picture improvements as we go along, but you're with your body every single day. So it's like hard sometimes to be like, am I getting better? Because I still feel some pain here. but I would echo that, like, patience with this condition as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. And
So
just like I said,
yeah,
it wasn't like feeling, it doesn't have to be just all out painful. It might still be uncomfortable, but it doesn't have to be just, you don't have to suffer.
yeah, you don't have to suffer. I love that. And yeah, what's next for you? What's next on your running journey here?
Yeah, so we will see what happens with Boston. It's the next step is to apply, and they get a zillion applications, so we'll see about making that cut. But I will, I think that um, I I have a half marathon on the calendar in a little over a week, which I didn't really think about that timing when I signed up for it. But I think I feel okay going into it and just sort of running it as like a long run, just to have fun. Wouldn't that be nice to just like go out and run a race, just to have fun running the race? And I feel like I can do that now. And beyond that, I think that I definitely want to put another marathon or two on the calendar for next year, and just kind of continue on this journey. Maybe, start to get a little faster, start to bring that time down a little bit. I think that would be great. I think I can do it. Um, and just keep putting in the miles and enjoying the running. Um, so, well, I'm just continuing to work with Coach Lou, and we've got I think we have our next sort of call. I honestly don't know. So this will be my third cycle. Now I'm in the longevity program, right? So
Yes,
I'm like,
yes,
what am I going to do without you all if that time comes? Yeah. So
yeah.
part of that too will be just figuring out how to keep this going and to be continuing on for hopefully many years.
Yeah. Well, I love that you have seen the value in receiving that guidance, and, whether it's me initially or Coach Lou, and, that you've met your goal of getting this BQ, and fingers crossed, right? Like, the cutoff isn't really ridiculous this year. I don't see how it could be after all the backlash from last year, but hopefully you never know, right? Yeah, and hopefully you will be running Boston in April, which would be awesome. Like, that would be your marathon that you have on the calendar
Yeah.
already in the spring. And if not, then it sounds like you're going to have another one. And Coach Lou will definitely, work with you to really work on that next running goal. And that's what we really do is, take this next training cycle and how do we get to that next step? And, there is steps, there's stages, just like PHT recovery. There's different stages that I go through from like clinician standpoint. Coach Lou goes through the same thing in his mind in terms of, okay, this is your first marathon training cycle in 7 years. Like, here's where we need to be able to get this time. Now that you've done that, you've demonstrated health doing that. Now we can take the training to this next level, right? And add in different elements of speed work. And, that's what he loves. And yeah, you're going to love that process going through it and training. For him. Is there anything else that we didn't talk about, or that you did want to mention about your whole kind of trajectory here, and really transformation of going from like chronically injured with hamstring pain to running a marathon, actually having fun and getting a PR and a BQ all in one?
Yeah, yeah. It's really kind of amazing. And how quickly, like in such a short period of time. So again, I think it's just for me personally, it's being able to kind of shift the mindset a little bit from like I'm just going for that, I want to like win my age group in this race, or I want to, I'm competing in this race, and just going from like, race to race and just kind of like making it through and hoping for the best, to wow, this really is part of my identity, and now seeing the reasons like why I do it. That's not just like I have to do it. um that's it's just been one of the most I think rewarding things from this whole process, is to really understand like why I love this, and why it really brings me joy even when it's hard.
Right. And it seems like you've gotten that love back for running again now that you have been healthy. So, yeah, Teresa, I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to share your story and journey with us here today. And if you are listening to this right now and some of this resonated with you, maybe, you have a stubborn injury, maybe you have proximal hamstring tendon pain. Maybe you're looking to get a BQ and you've been banging, your head against the wall to get like disqualifying time, and you're ready to like actually take action and, get that accountability and structure that you deserve to unlock your greatest potential as a runner like Teresa has. Then you can get stronger, run faster, and become a lifelong injury-free runner with our 16-week one-on-one healthy runner coaching program. You get support, structure, accountability from experts in the health and running industry, all personalized for you, easy to follow plans. You can learn more by just going to learn.sparkhealthyrunner.com/coaching. And thanks again, Teresa. I really appreciated this conversation, and I'm just so proud of you and what you have accomplished.
Thank you. Thanks for helping me to accomplish it. And I look forward to continuing our work together.
Yeah, it's literally my lifeblood and is why I do what I do. So thank you for allowing me to do that. And as always, runners, let's maintain a strong mind, a strong body, and let's just keep on running. Until next time.